Right, Strongman fam, welcome back to the MST Systems YouTube channel where we talk all things strongman, strength training, programming, PDs, technical breakdowns, everything. So if that's up your street, hit the subscribe button. We're going to jump straight in with a technical breakdown on Mitch Hoopers' yoke, which has been requested by a lot of people. Hopefully we can take a look at some of the things that he does and see what you can take away and apply to your training to help with your yoke runs. We'll jump straight into it. The first one we may as well go over is Mitch's yoke run from the Shore Classic. So this is a 506 kilo yoke run here that I'm watching. The first thing I want you to look at, guys, is let's look at the angle that the yoke is pointing at. After he takes his first stride, that yoke's quite flat, isn't it? It's like this. The bottom of the yoke is completely straight. After about one or two steps, that yoke starts pointing this way. So what I imagine Mitch is doing, I imagine he's cueing to push his hands into the yoke forward. A lot of people cue retraction or squeezing the yoke, which would cause you to get a lot of stability in your rack. But if you want that yoke to start leaning forward ever so slightly, you want to actually cue pushing. It looks as though Mitch is using that cue, and what that's doing, or Mitchell should I say, sorry I keep calling him Mitch. It's because of Mitch Flowers, I blame Mitch Flowers. It looks like Mitchell's pushing forward and the angle of the yoke is leaning slightly forward, which what that does is, it actually puts the center of gravity of the yoke slightly in front of you. It'll make you almost chase the weight of the yoke, and that's going to help gain a little bit of speed. It does come at the cost of a bit of stability, so you can actually see the moment where it happens. You can see the moment where that swing happens, and as you get more advanced with this cue, what you can do is you can actually go in and out of the cue. You can push forward for a little bit, gain a little bit of speed. If you lose stability, you can pull back, then you can push forward again. Say you had a long yoke run of 40 meters, you might be in and out of this cue 5 or 6 times throughout the whole 40 meters. Pretty interesting. It looks as though Mitch is using that cue. The next thing to look at here is his footwork, which is extremely important for a fast yoke run. If we take a look at how he picks up the yoke, he starts with a really wide stance, externally rotated, and I imagine this is more of like a squat stance that he's in here. His toes are pointing slightly out, he's quite wide, and as he picks up this yoke, he does a step in. One step in, and then as he takes a couple of steps, he's starting to get narrow with his stance. It's important to look at his footwork here. His left leg, as he lifts to step, you can see it's in a little bit of external rotation. This is something I noticed at Worlds. I think it was a bit more exaggerated at Worlds. What I found over the years in Strongman is, the heavier the yoke for the individual, the more away from a good footwork mechanic we're going to get. But ideally you want that foot to either be straight or going into a little bit of internal rotation as you step. His right leg seems to do this, but that left leg does seem to have a little bit more external rotation on the step. However, it's really hard to cue this on a heavy yoke, to be honest. So don't know if there's some kind of dysfunction going on in Mitchell's left hip, I'm sure he knows, or some kind of issue with his knee maybe, I don't know, or maybe it just happens and he's not aware of it. But his mechanic is very good. There's a slight kink in the armour of that left leg, but again, it's pretty much there. The interesting thing to know about his yoke runs is, well, I've actually just noticed on this one, he is wearing sleeves, but usually he doesn't wear sleeves, which means that he must feel like he's got safe and stable knees whilst yoking. Safe and stable knees whilst yoking comes from proper foot mechanics and proper control through the foot and load placement. If you watch as he steps here, bang, he stepped there, and if we look now, his right leg where all the load is through, his foot is strong. His arch has not collapsed. Even under all this weight, his arch has not collapsed. The load on a yoke, you want to try and get through the outside of the foot more than the inside of the foot, because if you go through the inside of the foot, you're going to collapse your arch. What happens when you collapse your arch? Inside ankle bone goes low, knee goes in, hip internal rotation, loads of stress through the whole kinetic chain, through the calf, shins, into the knee, into the hips, etc. And running with a mechanic where your foot collapses and the load is not you need to exaggerate how much load goes to the outside of the foot. That way you're going to have a more stable foot and you're going to have a safer kinetic chain. So Mitchell's really good at doing this. As he steps here, you can see that left leg is a little bit more externally rotated than his right leg, but what it means is that he's still getting that cue of strong arch because he's placing his load through the outside. So the external rotation doesn't matter too much as long as you're cueing the ability to load through the outside portion of your foot rather than more to the inside. And then as he steps this right foot again, he is keeping that load, he's keeping that load through the outside of his foot. He's keeping the arch strong. He's keeping inside ankle bone high, which is going to give much more stability all the way up the chain. So this is a really good yoke run, and look how fast it is, and look how straight his feet are, guys. Like, look how straight they are. Like I said, the heavier the yoke, the harder it is to have straight feet. It is. But if we can get them straighter, we're going to get more speed. Throughout this whole yoke run at 500 kilos, 506 kilos, this mechanic is really fucking good. I'll be honest with you, really good. So this one here, toying with 1,000 pounds. As he's starting again, you can see that right leg is quite straight, isn't it? And that left leg, as he's stepping, is a bit more externally rotated. See the right leg straight, left leg externally rotated? That's something that I noticed on Mitchell. I don't know why that happens. You see that back leg now, it's really obvious there. As he's stepping, look how much external rotation's in that left leg. That's the only thing that I see that on his yoke run is, it just showcases there's something going on. I don't know whether obviously, I don't coach Mitchell, I never even spoke to the bloke, so I do not know if he has any kind of issue in that left knee or hip, glute, or anything like that, or if it is just a mechanic that, he's unaware of, he's just focusing on the speed. He's very intelligent. I've listened to quite a few bits from him though, he's very intelligent, so I feel as though he would definitely be aware of it. What I'm trying to get at there is, he's starting wide and his feet are he's trying to get them straight. And he's trying to load the outside portion of his foot so the arch stays strong and then he doesn't collapse. As soon as the arch collapses, it's going to affect this whole chain. It's going to affect ankle, it's going to affect calf, it's going to affect knee, it's going to affect everything in the hip as well. And drilling volume on a yoke, a lot of people struggle to recover from yoke. It smashes the hips up. The reason being is usually because of the foot. The foot's collapsing in, it's causing hip internal rotation. You're then running with 300 kilo or whatever, putting a lot of volume in with this poor mechanic, and it's going to set you up for, it's going to set you up for struggling to go fast, it's going to set you up for dysfunction, it's going to set you up for overtraining in the hips, it's going to set you up for a lot of stuff. So, right, so now we're on a 615 kilo yoke for 10 meters, and what we can see here is quite a change in his mechanic. So he starts wide, but as you can see, he struggles to bring his feet in like he did with the lighter yokes because of, like I said, because as the heavier the yoke gets for the individual, the harder it is to replicate a good foot mechanic, a good running mechanic. So he's staying in more external rotation, he's stepping a lot short. Oh, he's actually brought his feet in a little bit there. Oh, and then he dropped it. But he's staying a little bit wider, he's stepping a little shorter. And this is the kind of weight, I'm assuming, for Mitchell, where he's just trying to go to finish. He's not focusing on speed, he's just trying to finish. You can see the change in mechanic there. And it's definitely something that's worth noting for yourselves is you need to understand that there's a difference between a speed yoke and a heavy yoke. And you need to be able to do both. Ideally though, we want to be able to transition them feet to being straight and getting load placement through outside of foot. If you have to stay externally rotated and wide and plod, we still want to get load for outside of foot. We don't want to collapse in, but that's going to be a lot slower. All right. Now we're going to go over to his yoke run from Worlds. This is the one that I noticed at the time. He had this different mechanic in his left leg. As he's stepping here, you can see pause here. That right foot is pointing straight down. It is directly underneath his heel. His toes are directly underneath his heel. The left leg that is taking the load, as you can see, his arch is strong. His knee is not coming in. His hip is not internally. He's got great load placement for his feet, which is one of the reasons why he's so fast on the yoke. Now, as he steps there, look at this left leg now. As he lifts his left leg up, can you see how much external rotation there is? Quite a bit different to that right leg, isn't it? There's definitely something going on there. However, he still has great load placement for his right leg. As he transitions the load to his left leg, he still manages to put it on outside of foot. His yoke's absolutely brilliant, I'll be honest with you. Boom. Look how long that stride is as well. Bang. And then the next one, boom. Seems to get a longer stride on that right leg as well, doesn't he? Bang. Oh yeah, he does actually. Look how much longer his stride is on his right leg. That's strange. I don't know the answer to that. Only he knows the answer to that. But the takeaways for you guys are how straight his feet are. Look how narrow they are as well. He starts wide, but as he picks up speed, he's getting narrower, and he's keeping his feet straight, and he's placing that load through his front outside foot. Also, look at the angle of that yoke. Similar to what I said at the start. I think his cue is to push forward, I think. Because look at that, the only reason that yoke's angled like that will be that he's pushing forward and he's trying to get the center of gravity of the yoke in front of him to go faster. That's a brilliant cue to work with. Again, it comes with some instability, but it will speed up your yoke runs and then bang across the line. And look at this, even after he's finished, look at this, hops, boom. Look how powerful it is for that foot. Great foot control. Boom, outside of foot. That's where the load's going. Outside of foot, jumps. Boom, lands, boom, outside of foot, and again. So this guy is an athlete. You can tell he's an athlete. Because even from his little celebration after the yoke, naturally he's acquiring strong positions. You can tell he's loading front of the foot because nothing athletic ever happens on the heels. Even after popping it around here, like finishing the yoke and hopping, you can tell the loads through the front of his foot. Like he's just, he's just naturally loading there, which is why he's so fast and he's so explosive, and he's able to transfer that to his moving events so that he's able to shave off seconds. And I think he actually said the first time he yoked, he did 1,000 pounds, which is absolutely crazy. So obviously the yoke does come real natural to him, but that's not just some genetic thing that he's some freak. It's because he was probably really strong before doing the 1,000 pounds, assuming he built a base of, the static lifts. And then I don't know what kind of background he's got, but I'm assuming he's got some kind of background where he's had to run or he's had to, he's learned to apply, where to apply force for his feet, because he's very good at foot control. He's very good at placement of load. He's very good at transferring load from one foot to the other efficiently. Yeah, just because I'm a dickhead, I've noticed that his left leg's slightly different to his right leg, but genuinely Mitchell's yoke's like near enough perfect. It's really good because of his running mechanics. They're really good, and the fact that he's able to do such good mechanics with such high weight. Like most people will be able to keep those good mechanics up to a certain point, and then they go out the window. His threshold for where they go out the window seems to be like 600 kilos, which is pretty ridiculous. Awesome work. Takeaways for you guys are straight feet, start wide if you have to for the pickup, but then try and get narrow, try and keep those feet straight. You don't want them externally rotated. However, it is very hard to do that, so don't look at your videos and think, oh, they're not perfectly straight, I'm shit. Just don't have duck feet, yeah? Try and get them as straight as possible. If they're slightly out, you're good. If one's really far out, the other isn't, to me that's like a little bit of a dysfunction. I would look at fixing it. How to do that? Well, you got to pay me for difficult shit like that. But yeah, look at imbalances and maybe fix them. Or if you're in no pain, like Mitchell's got a little issue there where left leg's different to right leg. But if he's in no pain, he has no issues. It's not carrying over into other areas. E.g., he's not getting issues on his deadlifts and stuff. Then he's not even going to care about it, is he? So it doesn't need fixing. But if you are getting like seizing in your lower back and glute and hip or something, and then you notice an issue like this, it's something worth fixing, isn't it? But also you got to remember that under these heavy load constraints that you're going to get on a yoke, it's not going to be perfect. We can try and train for it to be perfect and think about it being perfect, but don't get disheartened if it isn't, because you got to remember, you ain't just running around. You're running around with 300 plus kilo or something. So yeah, hope that helped. Hope it's kind of interesting. Fuck knows. Maybe subscribe, maybe comment, or if you like this guy, don't subscribe and I will not give a fuck. Anyway, I'll see you next time, little fucks.